so we're going to be talking about Scorpio energy in general. We're going to be talking about the transit that Adam has his eye on.
I think it's best understood with polarity, but there's something that we don't have that the other provides.
I guess you would first have to identify that there's something missing that you want to bring into your field.
We merge, whether that's sexually or whether it's bank accounts or whether it's emotionally. And it's why there's an intensity to Scorpio.
Are we actually connected via some sort of cord to spirit at all times when we're in a body?
When you see the galactic center, a lot of cultures too believe that's where souls come and go from.
Why is it so profound and accurate?
From the first time I looked at the dasas, I was floored. It's the only astrological technique in my experience that works 100% of the time. And I'm serious.
All right, so today we are here talking about the Scorpio lunar cycle, which we are about to begin. And we're going to be talking about Scorpio energy in general. And Adam, I don't know about you, but do you try to do Scorpio type things in Scorpio, like during a Scorpio lunar cycle, for example? Do you try to match some of the things that you're doing in your life with the energy of that zodiac sign?
I was having a conversation just last night with a student, and I used to have this tradition of watching The Crow on Halloween night because it also takes place then. It was my favorite movie as a child. And that would be considered a tradition. And then we both agreed that we're going to do it this time around. It's been like 10 years since I've seen it. So there's something.
I love it.
But, yeah.
Okay, so we're going to be talking about Scorpio energy in general. We're going to be talking about the transit that Adam has his eye on for this Scorpio lunar cycle, the biggest transit, the one to really pay attention to. And then for all of you Inner Circle members out there, Adam is going to be our upcoming Inner Circle mentor, teacher. So he's going to be going even deeper into the lunar cycle forecast with us. He's also going to be teaching a mastery class. So we're going to be talking about that as well in this episode. So Adam, welcome back. Adam is a beloved Astrology Hub teacher. He's an incredible astrologer. He's been podcasting longer than most people at this point, definitely in the astrology world. So welcome back to the show. We're so happy to have you here.
Hey, it's good to be back. Thank you.
All right, so let's talk about Scorpio energy. Can you describe it to us?
Well, I think it's best understood with polarity. So for instance, like if you first think of the polarity of Aries to Libra, first house, seventh house, you have self and other, right? Like we encounter the other and we learn to relate in Libra or the seventh house, right? What comes next is Scorpio. And it's, in a way, the logical conclusion of what happens when we begin relating to something, not just someone, something, right? Because ultimately, if it's a someone, there's something that we want from that person. We want love. We want to be seen. We want sex. Maybe we want other things, right? But there's something that we don't have that the other provides. Same with anything we attach to in our lives, right? Take alcohol, right? It's like, okay, you make that attachment, you begin relating to it, and there's, of course, benefits, but there's a lot of sacrifices as well that come with that relationship. So essentially what Scorpio is it's a confrontation with the implications of going after what we don't have. And so when you think about Taurus, second house, which is opposite it, that's everything that we have, right? Food, water, shelter, all of our values, and thus like we, accumulate what we would consider assets and how we identify with ourselves. The eighth house in Scorpio is everything we don't have. That's why it relates to debt. That's why it relates to death as well, because there's a negotiation there. And so it's simply a space where we're confronted with that layer of our relationship to everything. And that's the way I think about it.
Fascinating. I haven't heard it described quite like that before, Adam. And so, I mean, one of the traits I would say that people attribute to Scorpio quite often is this desire to become almost like enmeshed or like one with,
Hmm.
to really um merge energy field, merge yourself with someone or something. How does that relate to what you just said? Because I guess you would first have to identify that there's something missing that you want to bring into your field, correct?
Yeah, well, I think, embedded deep within our psychology is the feeling that we need to be completed by another person. And so we learn to relate and we get to know people in Libra seventh house context. And then the next step is we merge, whether that's sexually or whether it's bank accounts or whether it's emotionally, everything in our worlds merge. And that's a process. It's oftentimes very sloppy. There's power struggles. A lot of people don't want to give up certain parts of their identity or what they have for the sacrifice in the relationship. And it's why there is an intensity to Scorpio. It's essentially where we negotiate all terms with our addictions and attachments. It's kind of that. And I think it's helpful too to understand that the Buddha, this is a really deep insight into Scorpio, in my opinion. So the Buddha was born on a Scorpio full moon, was enlightened on a Scorpio full moon, and died on a Scorpio full moon. And they
Mm.
celebrate that as Vesak. But it's a really interesting thing if you're even this much familiar with Buddhism and his teachings, right? Because, you know, first noble truth, life is suffering, but really what is the root of the suffering? It's all of our attachments and desires. So everything that we bring into our world ultimately is going to be taken from us at some point. We live in an
Mm.
impermanent dimension, you know? And so how healthy our relationship is to everything that we relate to is really the essence of Scorpio.
Mm.
Make sense?
Yes. And when you're looking at a polarity like Taurus, Scorpio,
Mm-hmm.
how do you I mean like when I think about Taurus and Scorpio, they seem very different from each other, obviously. But there's a through line, correct? Like there's an energetic through line. So if we were looking at Taurus and Scorpio as our example, what is that through line, or what is the thing they have in common that is just expressed differently on different ends of the axis?
Mm-hmm. Let's see. There's a few images I usually use in describing this one, but give me a moment. We can start with the fact that they're both fixed, right? And so the fixity of Taurus, again, it's an earth sign. And so we're fixed in how we identify to everything that we want to spend our energy, time, and money on, right? Like our value
Mm-hmm.
system and identity is built within that area of the zodiacal story. And the confrontation with Scorpio as the polarity is where all of that is threatened because it does inherently relate to death. And so, however tight we're holding on to things is, it brings it up. And it's interesting too that Scorpio is the sign that has like the most animals and mascots to it because it's not just the scorpion, right? Often it's the snake, there's a dove, there's an eagle, right? Like there's all these different animal symbols that help to understand in a way the process. Even the phoenix is
Yeah.
associated. And so yeah, I mean, and it's also fixed water instead of the earth, right? And there's something that you can see in ice, how that translates into human emotion and stuff like this, but also how when water is stagnant, not moving, when it's fixed, it becomes putrid. It like things grow in it that we don't want to grow. Bacteria, mosquito larvae, you know. It's
Mm.
disgusting. And the same's true with our emotional state and our well-being and our psyche. Like if there's not movement if there's not process, if there's no tears, then in a way we become stagnant and we can be cold. We can, be prickly like icicles. Using the elemental world to begin to understand it's super helpful because that kind of targets what our work is in Scorpio season and when there's big transits as well happening there. It's about catharsis. It's about, again, identifying where we're umbilically connected to certain things that aren't necessarily feeding us in a good way.
Mm.
I don't know if that answers your question, but it's a way of thinking about it.
Yes, yes, I love it. Okay. And especially the fixed part, that one's pretty obvious that those two signs, have that in common, and that would create a lot of similarities between them, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Okay, Adam, I know you're going to be doing a full forecast for us next week, but can we just hone in just a little preview of the lunar cycle ahead, and what is the biggest transit that you think is the most important of the next 28, 30-day period?
Well, I think it's coincidental that one of the first times I was a guide for your community was when we talked about Mercury retrograde cycles, just Mercury cycles. And it also was a retrograde in Scorpio. To me, that is by far the most interesting transit of the lunation because the Kazemi, that is the start of the Mercury cycle, is also on the day of the new moon, which is
Mhm.
November 20th, and it happens at 28 Scorpio. And so you then, when you see things overlapping in that way, you want to become interested in symbol systems, whether it's the Sabian symbols or the Chandra symbols, what have you. I personally like the Chandra symbols, and that's what I use when I see, kind of emphasis on a particular degree. And so when you round up for the lunation, it's 29 Scorpio and also this Mercury cycle. And I used the word just a second ago, but it's really helpful in kind of getting to the core of a lot of what we'll be talking about. But it's an umbilical cord. That's the symbol. And it's an interesting one because it's like we are, when we're umbilically connected, like we are receiving nourishment from mother, right? But we also are deeply attached to mother, right? And so you can see the same with anything in our lives, whether it's our partner, our job, a substance, a narrative, whatever it is. That umbilical connection, again, is kind of the essence of the Scorpio work. And it is like the second to last degree of Scorpio. And so usually when you get to those anaretic degrees, like your sun is anaretic Capricorn, isn't it? There's kind of a finality of the story of that sign. And so we have lunation, Mercury cycle, beginning with this symbol in mind. And I think it's fascinating.
The beginning of a Mercury cycle starts with that Kazemi.
Yep. So always when Mercury is retrograde and it passes the sun, so that conjunction is the beginning of a Mercury synodic cycle.
Okay, and so the Chandra symbol is the umbilical cord,
Yep.
which is pointing us both to the nourishment that we receive from our relationships with others,
Mm-hmm.
and also the attachment or the dependence, right?
We will have to assess all of those chords because we have more than
Oh,
one. And we're thinking about it symbolically, right? Like we're attached to a lot of people, a lot of habits, a lot of things in our lives.
yes.
And I would wager that all of us have a few that we don't want anymore. We know that they're
Mm,
sapping our resources. We know that
mm,
we're ashamed about that umbilical cord. You know what I mean?
mm,
And so what it is an opportunity when you have these two cycles opening up with that in mind. It's like, all right, well then where's the knife? You know? Like where is it?
mm,
And how are we going to cut it?
mm. And
Yeah.
have you been following the experience of the Chandra symbol, whatever that is, through the Mercury cycle for a while? I mean, like, do you always consider the Chandra symbol when you're looking at a Mercury cycle and what the themes might be for that Mercury cycle?
Often at the beginning, yeah, I think it's interesting to always just get a peek, especially when I'm writing about it, because I'm a very image kind of based mind. And so, like, those symbols kind of are just like a launch for my imagination. I'm like, oh, that's interesting. It's perfect because it's what I was thinking, but now with that image, I can then use it in what I'm trying to convey and write about. Um, do it with lunations, do it with eclipses. Um, but yeah, at the beginning of cycles, I think it's when it's most important. And just to see how that plays out throughout, whether it's lunation or 117 days of a Mercury cycle. It's tough to remember, but that's why you got to write it down, create a document.
Yes. 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 And so you're thinking that this concept of where are we attached to things that are no longer giving us nourishment, that need to be cut, that need to be let go of, is going to be up and present for us throughout this lunar cycle and potentially throughout this whole Mercury cycle.
Wherever it points, wherever 29 Scorpio is in a person's chart is the big hint. So yeah, I think that theme is the one to consider, but also, like, where is it happening in your chart?
In terms of the content of our life for this next upcoming lunar cycle, you're seeing this theme around the things that are no longer nourishing us, that we are attached to on some level, needing to go. And how will we know what kinds of things those are?
Well, I think we all know what is taking our energy and what we're ashamed of, right? And so it's about being very honest with ourselves about that. And perhaps not even getting too much in our heads about, like, where it's happening in the chart or what planets it might be aspecting. It's just, I mean, in a way, it's thematic of Scorpio season. It's like what's happening in the world in the Northern Hemisphere. What are the holidays that are celebrated around this time? Like, the symbols are there. But when you see, again, I can't stress how interesting it is that the Mercury cycle does begin at the same degree in the same day. And it's my favorite cycle to track. It's the most interesting, and we can speak more about it. We will in the classes, but yeah, it's extraordinary because the themes will then reach out further than the lunation because the Mercury cycle is 117 days on average. So it'll be with us until the new year, in other words.
I'm reading this book, Adam. It's called Between Death and Life by Dolores Cannon. I think it's kind of a classic, but she was a past life regression therapist and a hypnotist who would sit in, thousands and thousands of hours of people going into past life memories, essentially. And this book is about the in-between where we're not in a past life and we're kind of after a death in another life. And one of the questions she asked is, because she, as the hypnotist, would ask them questions while they were in this regressed state, and she got fascinating answers. One of the questions was, are we actually connected via some sort of cord to spirit at all times when we're in a body? And this is something I also read about in The Bowl of Light, which is a book about indigenous Hawaiian beliefs and practices, and they call it the Aka cord.
Yeah,
and
Aka.
yeah, and she absolutely confirmed. I mean, she asked this question to many people in this state, and they all said yes, there is a cord, and that when we go to sleep, we're not in this dimension, so to speak, but we're still connected. Our spirit and our body are still connected via this cord. So I'm wondering if this umbilical cord that you're talking about is, yes, the what we think of at all times as, when we're in the womb, but then also the fact that we are kind of always in the womb, and there is a connection still between our bodies and the spirit realm via this cord.
Hmm.
And maybe we'll have some opportunity to explore this.
Yeah. I mean, there's an element of shamanic ideas in Scorpio, especially late Scorpio, interestingly enough. It relates to mythical creatures and psychedelics and
Mm.
Jungian insight and, just the shamanic realm and dream time and such. Like, it's a very interesting place of the sky, like late Scorpio into Sag as well. But like when you see the galactic um, center, right? Like the supermassive black hole that's on, in the galaxy band, when especially if you have no light pollution, that's what we're talking about. It's in that area of the sky. It's a very interesting area, and a lot of cultures too believe that's where souls come and go from.
Right.
And so Akacord, the Chinese talk about the Hun, which is the same idea, but it's connected to the liver. And
Wow.
so when we're dreaming, when we're under the influence of certain molecules and traveling to different dimensions of consciousness and stuff like that, it's the Hun, which is energetically and umbilically connected.
Yes.
And according to, like in Chinese medicine, it can be exhausted. And so things like cannabis and alcohol, anything that's really toxic to the liver, messes with the spirit of the Hun. And so it's an interesting insight to it, because oftentimes, like your memory as well, under the influence of a lot of these things, like if you're visioning too much, doing too much medicine, whatever it might be,
Right.
you're exhausting that connection to spirit. Because it's not to say it's false, it's just, too much exercise for it, perhaps artificially or induced in other ways that aren't just natural.
Wow.
And, but that's a Chinese medicine take on the idea that you were talking about.
Wow, that is fascinating. I mean, and it brings us back to that evaluation, that honest evaluation of the places where we may be too dependent on some of these substances or people or anything to connect us to the things we think we need or the things we think we want.
Yeah.
So it's fascinating. Okay, let's go to, oh, go, no, you were going to say
I
something.
was just going to say, because like one of the big ideas, especially in the mundane understanding of Scorpio, is that of debt, right? Like
Right.
banks, debt, etc. But everything we were just talking about is another form of debt, right? Like when we make those choices to say be in a toxic relationship or have toxic relations to certain substances or food, what have you, we're going in debt energetically when we're doing that, right? And that too, it's like a deeper insight into the nature of Scorpio. It's like Taurus is spring, right? It's the life-giving force. You can understand a lot about Taurus through a tree. A bull works too, but a tree is very helpful in understanding Taurus. And then the debt is, what we take from the tree. How much, like, will the tree even survive? How much do we take from it?
Well, and the idea that we're eventually going to have to pay it back.
Yeah.
So you run out of credit at some point and you eventually have to pay it back.
And you're dead.
So
You feel like you're dying.
right.
Bankruptcy, or the
Yes.
stress is so bad because you went margin long on some meme stock or something like that, and then you lose all your
Right.
money, and then you want to take your own life. That's why death too relates to Scorpio, right? Because when the debt, like when it gets low enough, you can't keep gambling and borrowing, you know, on top of your debt to pay off the other card or to pay off,
Right.
you know what I mean? Like it's a death spiral.
It is a
And
death.
yeah, that's where you get into real trouble
Well,
with.
and the interesting question is this is another one she asks them in this book is if you do take your own life, will you have to come back and do it again? And overwhelmingly, the response is yes. That
Yeah.
so you kind of don't real there isn't really an out. Like eventually, we have to deal with these things, and
Yep.
so the question is when. Like, do we keep kicking the can, or do we just deal with it, whatever it is, right? Oh,
Hmm.
fascinating. Okay. Oh, this is interesting. Let's talk about you're going to be teaching a mastery class on a Vedic technique or a Vedic
Yep.
lens, right? A Vedic technique. What is it? Why are you teaching it? Why is it important?
It's called the Vimshotri Dasa cycle. It's one of hundreds of these Time Lord techniques that they use in Jyotish. Probably the most common one. Like even Western astrologers who dabble, kind of like myself. Like I'm not a full-on Jyotishi, but I do use Vedic techniques and understanding and interpreting charts. From the first time I looked at the dasas, I was floored. I was like, what, huh? Like this is very strange in the level of accuracy that it shows. And the more I studied it, and of course at first it's like just my own life and people around me, and then I got very confident with it quickly and I started using it with clients. This is 15 years ago. And it's the only astrological technique in my experience that works 100% of the time.
What?
And I'm serious. Like in the way that I use it, which funny enough, a lot of Jyotishis, like very serious ones with gurus and stuff, think I'm an idiot. I don't care because of the way I use it, it basically helps me to perfectly understand what karmically is happening in a person's life, how, like, what planet really, because it's a planet-based Time Lord system where there's others like zodiacal releasing and annual perfections that are either house-based or sign-based, right? And so it's a planet-based Time Lord system, and it's unbelievable how it works. And I taught a series on this, a 10-part series at the beginning of the year, or it was last year. And I never, for some reason, taught a class on it. But in doing that as well, it gave me a whole new layer of appreciation for the technique as well. And so I was told that you had a recent guide teaching about the nakshatras, right?
Yes, Nora Rochelle.
So this technique is based off of the nakshatra of your moon, and that's how they calculate it from that. And so in a way, then it predates all versions of quote unquote modern astrology because the nakshatras are much older. And a lot of Jyotishis will say, like, yeah, this is 100,000 years old.
Whoa.
This
Okay.
goes deep into the processional civilization story, which, you know, I like hearing things like that. It's interesting. So that's kind of like the intro to it. It's a phenomenal technique. Every Vedic astrologer is aware of it. Those that are really advanced might like scoff at it, be like, nah, it's not as powerful as this one. It's not as powerful as this one. But whatever. It's a very profound way of understanding where we're at in our lives.
Give me an example. So, yeah, tell us what it is, what it does.
Yeah.
I mean,
So
without explaining the technical details of how to do it, just, why is it so profound and accurate?
yeah, so the way the technique was taught to me is it's with the assumption that when the soul enters, or in its migratory pattern to earth to incarnate, it makes all of these deals with the planetary deities, right? And so you can see this like stopping through the dimensions and like in a way like picking up the karma in a pamphlet or whatever, like whatever image you want to use. But it, once we're born, this 120-year sequence begins. And again, it's based off of where your moon was when you were born. And so you run through these planetary periods. They're all different lengths. And that is when the karma between your soul and that planet is ripe. It's playing out. And there's always transits. There's always progressions. There's always other things that completely back it up, like once in a lifetime transits. And you're just like, what is going on? How is it even possible? Because oftentimes it's outer planets that are confirming. Say you're in a Saturn dasa. You just moved into the Saturn dasa. It's, I think, 18 years. But at the same time, you're in the midst of your Saturn return. Right? Like Saturn's exact to the degree on your natal Saturn the day you move into your Saturn dasa. It's like, what's that? And that's every time I look at this technique. It's something like that every time, where this it's statistically impossible. Like, how
Oh,
could you, and they're different systems as well, like from different backgrounds. So it's kind of like that. But then if a person's in a Saturn dasa, that inherently by itself, without even looking at the natal chart, has meaning. It's kind of like a prolonged Saturn return, if you will, but it's not the same life cycle, but like the influence of Saturn is still with you for nearly 2 decades, you know? And
so
yeah.
while you're in a Saturn dasa, for example,
Mhm.
you're working out
Saturn
your
karma.
Saturnian karma and contracts. So what kind of themes would that be?
Well, let's use me as an example because I recently just left my Saturn dasa. Proud of surviving
You
that.
graduated. Yes.
At the beginning of it, which was, nearly 20 years ago, I pretty much had no money. Uh, my mother had destroyed my brother and I's credit by maxing out credit cards in our names when we were young. Like,
What?
how they try to get you right when you
Yes.
go into college, and
Yes.
they're even on campus and stuff. So she just pretended to be us and maxed out our cards. And, we found out the hard way when they started coming for, their money. Um, and so the Saturn Dasa begins, and I'm at the time in acupuncture school, and I wasn't that convinced that I was going to be an acupuncturist. Like I enjoyed the process, but like I wasn't sure. Like I actually wanted to have a practice and go through all of that. Like I was very indecisive. And so right when it began, I took a leave of absence from the school I was at, went to the jungle. It was the first time I ever left the country. And I went into the Amazon alone. Fast forward that story. It's a crazy story, especially in the context of the Saturn Dasa. But when I got back, there was like this really severe capitulation in my life where I realized, like, all right, everything I thought that I was to do or be or whatever, like just the hard circumstances of my life, because I had no support. My dad had passed when I was young. My mom was going crazy. Like it was like crunch time. Like, what the hell am I going to do? And the first step of that was basically a Qigong teacher that took me under his wing. And he was from the school, but it was like a really powerful like suggestion, and like this program that he had created did something to me. Like it gave me confidence that like, oh, I could do this. And I did. Like I was a medical qigong practitioner for better part of 3 years, and while I was doing that was when astrology came.
Hmm.
And those 3 years, but especially when the astrology came, because also the podcast came quickly after that, I was a workhorse. Like that's all I did was work, because there was a huge flame under my ass, right? Like it was kind of like life or death. It was a very Saturnian thing. And so I just became very responsible. I grew up fast. And throughout the whole Saturn cycle, I just grinded. I grinded. And I just left it in June. And what comes after the Saturn dasa is the Mercury dasa. And so, the main thing that was kind of the celebratory conclusion to my Saturn dasa is I'm no longer afraid of that like survival thing, right?
Hmm.
Like the instinct of not having enough or like knowing what to do, because I've established myself in this career, but there's also other things I've learned along the way. And because of that, and also you study the planet in a person's chart, right? And so like my Saturn is with Pluto, like during COVID, in my second house. And so it kind of relates to what we're talking about, but second house, resources, money, etc. And it's the biggest karmic gift that my family circumstances gave to me, was that. Even though the circumstances were so dire and they really messed up my brother. Like I kind of made it through intact, but my brother didn't.
Do
He's
you know
doing
what
better
dasa
now.
he was in?
Um, Throughout it wasn't the Saturn one. I think when he really had his all-time low, it was K2 or the South Node, which
Mm,
which can be a really tough time too, like
right.
loss of so much. of your identity and story and like actual loss as well.
Right.
I think that was the main one when he was going through the worst of it. He's better now, which is good. But my point is like, I see it as a gift because without that, without Saturn confronting me in that way through like most of my 20s and 30s, I wouldn't be who I am. It would be impossible, you know? And so in retrospect, like, yeah, it was hard, but I'm really actually glad that it happened when it did as well. And
Mm.
so that's me as an example, but also this is a strange thing too. It's kind of the same with transits. Whatever dasa you're in, you tend to attract people into your life that are also in that.
Yeah.
And so like so many clients that I've worked with over my career were also in their Saturn dasa. And so because I was in it, I was able to help probably in a more profound way than if I had never experienced the Saturn dasa, you know?
All right. So you're going to teach us how to find out which dasa we're in,
Mm-hmm.
also to go backwards, right? And track
Oh
different
yeah.
periods of our life, and then go forwards and track where we're going in terms of dasa.
It's pretty straightforward. I mean, it's just a 120-year sequence that shows these planetary periods. And you can get the information for free. You don't need solar fire or anything to see
Okay.
it.
Okay. So we could go in and
Yeah.
say, and do you just basically say, here's my birthday,
Yeah.
and then you can look up your dasa right now? Like people could go
Yeah.
on to ChatGPT or something, or Google.
Oh, I don't know about trusting the AI on that one. Maybe.
Right.
Maybe.
Maybe.
It is getting better at astrology, but it's
Yes.
it's it's quite a shitty astrologer. Um astroseek.com I think is where you can get a good version of it for free. Stay away from a lot of the Jyotish sites online. They're all garbage and I think are filled with malware. So go to astroseek.com. I don't know what that is about the Indian astrology sites, but so many of them are just, you don't want to
You're
go
gonna
there.
get trapped. Yeah, yeah. Okay.
Yeah, yeah.
So people can go check that out. And then in the class, you'll go through what it means to be in any of
Mm-hmm.
a given dasa. Yes?
Oh, yeah.
Okay. Wow, fascinating. If you are an inner circle member, we have that to look forward to. You'll get that in your learning portal on the new moon. And then if you're not, you can join us for Adam's lunar cycle. So you can go to astrologyhub.com/inner circle and check it out and join us. And you can
Join
even
us.
join us. You can even join for a month and just see if you like it. And if you can get Adam's great mastery class. And then if it's not for you, you can go at any time. So go check it out. What is Mercury all about? your next one. I mean, so you finished that. Like, do you feel like you've been given a whole new assignment essentially?
Mm. Yeah. I mean,
I
a lot
think you
has
need to write some
changed.
books. Yeah.
That's
Mercury?
possible. I've got a new setup, a new situation that I'm in, which is kind of unique, and I think it would be quite ripe once I'm fully nested into it to get more into research and writing and whatnot. Um, at the moment, I'm in the chainsaw phase of just cleaning up the forest and like settling in.
Yes. Yes. Wow.
uh, yeah, winter's coming, got to stay warm and whatnot. But yeah, I think it, what I can say is it's been, 4 or 5 months since the shift. And I've been looking forward to it for, as long as I've known about the DOSes. And like, I wonder if I'll even make it. But when I do, I mean, because chart skills and interpretation is important. It's like I'm ruled by Mercury. My sun's ruled by Mercury. My midheaven, my north node, everything is ruled by Mercury in my chart, right? And so when you move into a planetary period where that planet is a very strong significator in your chart, it also tends to translate to the most memorable chapters of a person's life. And so I'm not making any predictions for myself or anything, but like knowing what I know about the technique, now that I'm in the Mercury Dasa, I'm just like, all right, let's settle into this. Like, what does it mean? Because also the Mercury cycles, like you brought up the question with, has become that's the main thing I write about. And I do so for two reasons. One is to fill a void that's out there about people really tracking these cycles. My buddy Gary Caton wrote a whole book on it. He does it. There's a few others, but like there's not a lot of us. Like the Mercury cycle is kind of niche, but when you track it and really understand what's happening, it is so fascinating how it works. Because like in the same way, because I'm sure you've done tons of shows on like a Venus retrograde, and like what that means and the cycles and the star points and all of that, right? Mercury's got its own thing going on. But instead of playing out all the relational stories and the Venusian themes, it's all mercurial. So it's in the realm of ideas. And so what happens around the retrogrades and the Kazimis and stuff like this is we get claimed by an idea. And it's a little elusive at first for people, but like once you really know what you're looking for, it's not tough, because it's kind of like, well, what are you reading? What are you studying right now? What are all your conversations about when you're engaging with people? Where is your mind? And if you know just that much, and say that the Kazemi is coming and the retrograde's happening, you then can commit to that idea and line of inquiry, and every step of the Mercury cycle, whether it's a morning star or it's not in the sky at all, or it's an evening star, there are these different phases of where the ideas take you, right? And so like the first phase of the Mercury cycle is usually that phase where you've ordered 12 books on Amazon and you're watching everything you can and listening to podcasts, and you're like, I'm going to learn. But like by the time it's an evening star, you're like, nah, screw most of these books and the ideas. Like I have my own idea about this now. And then there's a depth that occurs. Like it goes from young trickster Hermes into like the Hermes Trismegistus sage version of it. And so what you witness is an idea take you on a journey. Again, it lasts like 117 days or whatever, but it completely transforms not just your thinking, your reality, because that's what happens with ideas, right? They change our perception. They create new synapses and pathways in the brain. And it's just so interesting because like one of the things when I first started studying astrology was how suspicious I was about everyone's take on Mercury retrograde. You know what I mean? Like it was like everyone kind of has the same take on it. I see the tricks happening, but I know there's more to this. And I think by tracking these cycles, I got to the bottom of it. Like the RX is truly medicinal. And what he's trying to do as he comes, because literally what's happening astronomically is Mercury's coming in between the Earth and Sun. So it's the closest Mercury gets in its whole orbit when that Kazemi happens. And so just to imagine like the magician coming through and dropping an idea into us. And it's our job to not lose focus and to really pay attention to it and then watch it transform us. Yeah.
Does it happen after the Kazemi, or could you be like feeling the resonance of it before the Kazemi?
Yeah. Like we're in the pre-shadow right now. So it kind of like we're in the realm of it. For me, it usually is during the retrograde when it becomes apparent.
Yeah.
And
obvious.
And then once you see it and once you know, it's exciting because you're like, okay, I can commit to this, like, and what I'll do, so I have discipline around it. I'll only read like books or, take in information that is somewhat related to whatever that idea is for the duration of the entire cycle. And then I just let it take me, jumping around from author to author or doing whatever, and then just seeing what the end result of it is. And it's not always ideas, Amanda. Like the one a year ago that caught me off guard was the Mercury retrograde in Leo. So there was just one in August, but the one in 24, art came back into my life. Like I used to love doing art. Yeah. Yes, but that was fully this idea playing out. And so like out of nowhere, like I just wanted to draw again. And then I'm like, oh, what are some good apps on the iPad for doing art, And then it just started and I went so deep. And then at the end of it, I'm like, oh, I know what I can do with this skill now. All the images I use are mine. So I
Yes.
don't use other people's art anymore. I just use my own.
Oh my God. And I'm sure
Yeah,
it made you a better astrologer, even just the process of creating imagery around the things that you were writing about.
it's fun.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
If your newsletter is one of the few that I open every single time you send something out.
Wow, really?
Yes. Yes.
Cool.
So if any of you are not subscribed, it's how do they subscribe to it?
It's on Substack.
Substack.
So
Yeah.
yeah, you could probably
Hope I
just
have it.
Google my name
Yes.
but it's called The Dragon Hole. Yeah.
The Dragon Hole. That's right. Okay. Adam is an amazing writer. It's just so, your writing is so unique, so nuanced and deep. And so if I can just be the little one dropping a little idea, Adam, for
Hmm.
you, why don't you write a book on this? I mean, I know there's books on but the way you work with the
Right.
retrograde cycle, the Mercury, not retrograde cycle, I'm sorry, the Mercury cycle, the way
Mhm.
you work with it and the different stories and things that you have experienced or your students have experienced as a result of working with the Mercury cycle, I think it would be amazing. I mean, just throwing it out there.
I appreciate the seed.
Yes.
It's
Yes. Just
there.
throw it. Yeah. Because
Yeah.
it's unique. Like the specific way that you're talking about engaging with each of the phases and really letting an idea take us, even that is just kind of like an enchanting idea to
Yeah.
just allow yourself to be taken by something and to absorb yourself in it, to say I'm excluding all other things for now and I'm just going to go really deep into this one thing. I think if we all did that in a cyclical form,
Oof.
imagine the skills and the new perspectives we would gain over time. And then if we're tracking it and actually like seeing how it layers on top of each other, like at the end of the last one when you went, well, now I can use this skill for all of the imagery I use in my work. Like,
Exactly.
that's awesome. I love it.
Yeah, and I've taught so many classes on this, and one of the little snippets I often say is like writer's block is dead in the water if you or creative block, whatever it might be, if you actually track what I'm talking about. There's no way. There's no way that you will remain stuck or bored or what have you, because in a way, if you want to see it, the way that a lot of astrologers, ancient ones specifically, would see this, like you have a god gifting you an idea that is supposed to take you somewhere and transform your perception and thinking in a way like you could never do without just that kind of focus to it.
Wow.
And that's exactly what I think is going on with it. Like I'm not being abstract. I mean, it
Right.
might seem insane, but like it's very, very, very real.
Let's be honest. A lot of the things we talk about here, there are many people who would think it's insane. So
Yeah, I mean,
that's
just the
fine.
word
Yeah,
astrology is too much for
right.
many. Yeah.
Exactly. Okay, so from umbilical cords, aka cords, what's hung? What was the word for the Chinese? The
Oh, the
umbilical,
Hun, Hun.
the Hun. Okay, to the not the dasha. What is the thing you're teaching in the inner circle?
Yeah, yeah, Dasa, Vim Shotri.
Dasa.
Dasa,
The,
yeah.
okay, so from this idea of the umbilical cord and really looking at our attachments and our nourishments to the dasa and understanding which dasa you're in, what flavor of karma and contracts are you working through in this particular moment in time, and then to Mercury cycles and the beginning of one. So we're going to be exploring all of this together in the community. And whether or not you join us, I hope that you'll go deeper on some of these ideas that Adam and I have talked about today, because just writing one of them, maybe this moment is the moment that an idea might take you somewhere.
Yeah, we're in the
That's
pre-shadow.
yeah. Yeah. So that's really fun to think about. Adam, it's always such a pleasure to be here with you. Thank you for continuing to grace us with your presence and wisdom. We're so lucky to have you.
I was gonna
Sorry.
say, well, I'm lucky to be here. Thank you. And I'm surprised you didn't bring up the Atlas thing, because every time we talk, there's always some anomalous
Well, let's
Something.
go there. I mean, come on.
No, I don't know
It's a
anything
huge
about it.
deal. You don't? Okay. It's a huge deal. I've been watching as many
Yeah.
things as I can about it. I mean, the person that I tune into the most about it is Stefan Burns, the
Okay.
geophysicist.
Okay.
He's awesome. And he's also very versed in astrology. So I feel like he holds both the very scientific geophysicist sort of lens
Mhm.
and with an understanding of like, so what? You know, we're not just looking at an object and trying to figure it out. There's also a element of like, what does it all mean that he brings into it? And his stuff is really good. So I would recommend checking him out. But yes, this
Thank
3i
you.
Atlas thing is wow. And by the time this airs, maybe we'll know more. But yeah.
Well, hopefully it doesn't get in the way of
This
you
episode
uploading
ever
it.
airing? Yeah.
Yeah.
It's a great call.
Yeah.
All right. Thank you so much for being here. Everyone, thank you for being curious, for being interested, for being a part of our community, and for, as always, for making astrology a part of your life. We'll catch you on the next episode. Take care, everybody.